Hey, welcome to the Intact Beyond Transformation series. I'm Nathan Dale, CEO of Intact Beyond. Thanks very much for joining us. We're a collective of subject matter experts who have all come together to help communities and employees as they transition through this tough time during COVID and how to set up their patterns and their systems in order to thrive beyond. Facilitating is Nicole Watson, and our subject matter expert is Peter Moriarty. Peter is the CEO of IT Genius, and he'll be talking us through different IT platforms and different ways technology can help us. I'll hand over to the guys, and thanks again for joining us.
I'm Nicole Watson, and I'll be facilitating today's deep dive with Peter Moriarty from IT Genius. How are you today, Pete?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Nicole.
Thank you so much for giving us your time today. Hey, look, I know that you're a seasoned work from homer. So this time may or may not have affected you and your business, but has it? And if so, how?
Great question. I would say, business-wise, we're in the business of helping teams and businesses work from home. And so while there's certainly been a dip in some of our customers, for the most part, we're keeping fairly busy, which is nice. Not all businesses are in that situation. But the effect has really been, I guess, our team have their own personal families, their personal home situations that they've had to manage. And, I think, the overall, there's a bit of global fear at the moment. That's really affected our team. So our main effort has been on making sure that our team feel comfortable, they feel supported, and that we've been able to do whatever we can to make sure that they feel okay. That's really the biggest thing right now is everyone feeling okay?
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, as a business, we've implemented a lot of additional check-ins and even outside of the business world. I mean, we do need to check in on our community, our family and really just be checking in and asking people if they're okay and if they need any additional support. And, it has been a really difficult time for a lot of people, whether or not you're working or not. We are all, isolated and stuck indoors, kind of 23 hours a day. So, yeah, thank you so much for your insight, Pete. So
happy to be here.
What will we be talking about and covering off today?
Today, I'm going to cover the ultimate remote work technology stack, which is all about what tools do you need to work remotely? How do you operate as a team remotely? And then how do you put them together? And then finally, I'm going to be going through my tips and traps for work from home newbies. Myself and my team have been working from home for a number of years, and we're going to share some of our most important tips to make sure that you get right if you're transitioning to remote work, or if you're already working remotely and you just want to make sure that you're productive and healthy doing it.
Fantastic. I think I'll be the number one downloader of your deep dive because I am a tech phobe. I've been reaching out to our tech guys, pretty much every other day since we've been working remotely, and it's absolutely no different in the office. So I can't wait to hear what advice you can provide today.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and get into it.
Great.
Awesome. So we have our framework, which is called the Remote Technology Stack. What that means is this is the collection of different apps and tools that you should be using to bring together your team, to facilitate your work and make sure that you can be empowered to be a productive team as we are all working from home. We're all in the same boat now. Now, myself and my team, we started the business 11 years ago. However, for the last nearly 6 years now, we've been completely remote. What that means is that we don't actually have a fixed central office. We do have some co-working spaces that we use from time to time. But for the most part, everyone works completely from home and completely independently. And we've been that way nearly 6 years, which has been quite a journey. And we've scaled our team from starting from just a handful of people in Sydney to now over 35 employees, all working completely from home. Now, that seems pretty radical. And yes, we invite anyone who wants to be radical to give it a go. But this is not the be all and end all for all businesses. And for many businesses, even though, flexible and remote work options will be opened up in the future and remain open in the future, I would say it's unlikely that most businesses would stay in a complete 100% work from home scenario. Now, what are some of the changes when you actually switch from being in an office to working remotely? Well, the kind of tools that you have access to, the way that you work, how you communicate with your team members, how you communicate with your customers, and how you really look after yourself and your own relationship with technology, are really factors that you need to be mindful of as you are working and making this transition to working from home. And so where in the office, we will have a whiteboard, and this whiteboard is not just a literal whiteboard, it's figurative in line of sight, in you understanding, okay, what are the priorities, what's everyone working on, what are we working on this week, what are we working on next week? They're the kind of things that are pretty easy to do when you're physically next to someone. You might have a to-do list, you might have a colleague that you can check over their shoulder, you might be able to walk over to someone's desk and ask them a question when you need them. Whereas when we're working remotely, we have to transition all of these events and elements into the online world, and that can be a bit scary. So while we're all working in isolation, I'm going to take you through, well, what are some of the foundational ways that we need to think about the technology that connects us? And I'm going to share with you some tips on how to make sure that this is not going to be a hindrance or make it difficult for you to get your work done. It's actually going to support your work being done. And then I'm going to take you through, well, what are some of the tools that we actually use and some of our recommendations of tools that you might be able to implement in your business. Now, before I start making recommendations, if you're on a team and you're not necessarily the decision maker on what tools you may be using in the business, or the IT department, or maybe an external IT consultant has dictated or recommended you use particular tools, then what I'm sharing with you today, just remember that you can apply this to pretty much any tool. If I recommend one app and you can maybe use an alternative. If I recommend Google, you can potentially use Microsoft. There's all different apps to get done what you need to get done. I want you to try and take away the frameworks and the principles behind what I'm sharing, rather than worrying about specific apps that I'm recommending. However, if you do have the opportunity to make a business case to implement a new app, then I'm sharing some of the apps that we recommend strongly, and some of the ways that they can help you work a whole lot more efficiently. Okay, so let's get into it. So if there's any questions, we will have an opportunity for you to get in touch with us. I love your questions, and I'm used to doing these things live, so I don't have any questions right now, but Nicole's going to send some through for me as we go along. If you are interested in getting any additional help, our contact details will be at the end of this. And if you want to send us a message on Facebook, we'll be really happy to answer any brief questions that you have on any of the content that we have covered. So our framework is connect, coordinate, communicate, and automate. And this is how we approach you making sure that you have the right tools in your hands for you to be able to get work done productively with your team. Now, what that means is that you don't just need the basics of email and a phone or a Zoom meeting, as many people are using as their basic toolkit right now. There's a few other tools that you need to really make remote work. And we've been doing it for a number of years, and we've been fine-tuning how to work productively and how to have good boundaries between the technology that we're using so that it doesn't completely control us. Now, everyone's been in a situation or a feeling of overwhelm at some point in their life. Maybe you've been on too many Zoom meetings on a particular day, or maybe you're set up for instant messaging and you're getting messages from all over the place from your colleagues or even external customers as well. And you're just feeling like things have gone, a little bit too far and you're no longer in control of your own communication. I'm going to share some things with you that are going to really help with that. First up, I want to cover connect. And this is really about laying the foundation. How do you actually make sure that you can get work done with your team? And so we're a Google reseller. I'm going to use examples from the G Suite or Google Cloud ecosystem. And so we have Google Drive, we have Google Docs, we have Gmail, we have Google Calendar. And these are a suite of applications which allow you to collaborate with your team members. Now, Microsoft obviously have their own Office 365 equivalent of collaboration tools. And then you've got a few other, Amazon and some other people have got their own ones. Or you may have a hodgepodge of different systems. Maybe you're running Dropbox and, your emails are going through your web host if you're a small business. All kinds of different ways to get these. The most important thing is for you to be able to get work done with your team. And so if you're working on a file, gone are the days of dialing in with a VPN or a remote desktop server or, having to connect to the server that's sitting there in the office. For the most part, we're now using cloud-based file storage tools like Google Drive or Dropbox or even SharePoint if you're in the Microsoft world. One of the things that's important to look at opening up to is collaborative working. Most of our work is pretty linear. What that means is that I work on a file, I save it to a server, the next person works on the file, they save it back to the server, the next person works on the file. And if you're using something like Dropbox, it's the same kind of concept. You work on the file, you put it in Dropbox, you wait for it to synchronize, and the second person opens it. Now, switching to a live editing document like a Google Doc, means that multiple people can work on a document together collaboratively at the same time. And so when you've got multiple people working on a document, you can see each other's cursors moving around the screen, and you can all work together in authoring that document. Now think of the example of sitting down in a boardroom and having a meeting with a number of people. Each person will walk away from that meeting with their own set of action items. Now that's a problem because you may have different sets of notes of what actually was discussed in the meeting. And so if you were to open a collaborative document, be it a Google Doc or maybe a Google spreadsheet, then you can actually have all of the notes, all of the action items, all of the initiatives or the projects in one place, and everyone can see it live. Now that's a very powerful way of working because it cuts down on the double handling. It also means that when you're in that meeting, you might assign one person as the scribe, and that one person can scribe the notes. Now this translates really well to your Zoom calls or your Google Meet calls. If you're having a meeting and you've got multiple people in that meeting, then having someone assigned as that scribe means that that person can actually take down the notes and share them with everyone. Now, next up is instant messaging, and it can really become a bit of a challenge with you actually having good boundaries on when it's okay for someone to contact you or not. Now, in the next section, I'm going to cover in Communicate. I'm going to cover how you can move off instant messaging and into tasks. But I want you to think about instant messaging and whether you're using Skype or Microsoft Teams or Slack or Google Chat. Instant messaging is like busting in on someone's office and saying, hey, are you available right now? I really need to talk to you. And no matter what someone else is doing, when you send them an instant message and it pops up on their screen, ping, then it's going to interrupt their work. Now, we've all heard of the studies which say that it takes you another 30 to 45 minutes to get back into your deep work and into the swing of actually working. Well, that's completely gone now. I don't think deep work actually exists in the modern workplace because everyone's either trying to multitask or they're getting pinged by messages all the time. So the most important thing that I want you to take away from this is that instant messaging should only be used when it's actually urgent. And that means you're ready to interrupt whatever somebody else is doing. The rest of your communication should ideally be in some form of task management or workflow application that allows conversation threads to happen without constantly pinging someone. Now, you may say, well, Pete, we can use email for that. And email is okay. However, email is not great because it's, number one, quite a formal way of communicating. That means you've got to say, dear Peter, how was your weekend? I've got a task for you. Kind regards, so-and-so, right? It's quite a formal way of communicating with someone. And that's, not necessarily the best way to coordinate projects. The second problem with email is you get mixed in with emails from outside the company. And so if you're trying to work on things with your team and you're getting distracted by other stuff from other people outside the business, then that's going to hurt your productivity by being interrupted. So I would say that email is not the best way to manage and actually take care of your tasks internally. So we use G Suite for the basics of connecting. And you'll find that right now, if you're spending a lot of time on Zoom, maybe you don't need to spend all of your time on Zoom. Maybe you don't need to spend all of your time on meetings. It's very easy to set a lot of meetings for things. But as we're transitioning to a world where we can have our tasks somewhere else and we can communicate a little bit more smartly with our customers and internally as well, you'll find there's probably time for a little less meetings. So let's talk on to our next step and the next part of our framework. So we've got a quick message here.
Before we go on, just on that, I mean, a lot of people use instant messaging because they're so used to, say, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp. So I think people kind of have a go-to that it's used in a social way. So have you got any suggestions that, on how to use instant messaging in a social way, or would you say that's a complete no-no, or maybe separate? What do you think about that?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked that question because I wanted to cover that. I'd say you need to be really clear, like what is social chatter and what's I need to contact you about work stuff. Because if you're in the situation where the social chatter is kind of mixed in with everything else, then you're literally going to disrupt people and people will not get their work done and begin to feel overwhelmed. One of the simplest things that you can do is have a designated area for that chit chat. And we call that the water cooler. So I'm literally going to go into our chat here. Let me go ahead and open up the water cooler. And what we will do is we will actually set the notifications to be muted in the water cooler. So if you mute the notifications in the water cooler, then you'll see here, I don't actually get notified when something happens there. And this is basically the thread where the whole team can post. You can see here YouTube videos, screenshots. They like to post, fun giffies and games and all those kind of things. This is really the place where the team can just spend as much time as they want dicking around, basically. But then when you need to actually get work done, you can see here, I can see the important notifications from my team when I actually need to connect with my team. But the water cooler there is for when you've got 5 minutes between a meeting or you want to, have some chit chat time. You can jump into the water cooler and go ahead and spend time there with the team.
Great. Thanks, Pete, because I think it's so important that we do, connect in with everyone at the moment, as we kind of mentioned earlier. And, morale can be really low. So I think it's really important that we do keep up that social banter and have those conversations that we would usually have by the water cooler in the kitchen, when we're grabbing a coffee and share, the fun parts of our personalities with our colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other rooms that's really important is basically our Team Genius room. And so you can see here, if someone's taking a break, when someone's coming to work for the morning, or if they're off for lunch, or, if they need to, send an announcement to the whole team, this will basically go in one big thread every day here. And so our team are, jumping on and saying hello, so we know that someone's around. But we also use this room for shout outs. So, when a customer rates, gives a customer service rating on one of our support tickets, that's pretty cool. We'll celebrate if someone's had a win or someone's done well and, finished a project. You can see here, we post all kinds of memes and fun stuff in there as well when we're celebrating the team. And so that's really our place where we recreate the idea of what you would normally have in a physical office.
Love it. Thank you.
Awesome. So we've got one more question here. So can instant messaging be used for banter? And I would say absolutely. There's even some cool games that you can add to Slack and Google Chat, which will prompt that kind of thing as well. So let's move on to the next session, which is coordinate. And this is really, how do you coordinate your priorities, your KPIs, and what happens in the business? How do you actually get your work done, right? Because in a business, sometimes you'll have a whiteboard or you'll have, maybe a spreadsheet or a project plan to, kind of push things down to the team. But there's a few ways that we can use technology to really make that work a little bit better. And they work really nicely when you are in a remote workplace as well. And so we really love using dashboards for our priorities and KPIs. The dashboards allow us to see exactly where things are at right now. And so this one's built in something called Google Data Studio. But if you wanted to build this out in a spreadsheet with some graphs, something like Google Sheets works really nicely because the numbers all update automatically. And so this is a way of the team really seeing what's going on and happening with the business. But the next one, and the most important one, is, as I mentioned, reducing that instant messaging chatter and how do we actually get work done. Now, I'm a massive fan of an application called Asana, which is shared task management. Now, you don't have to use Asana. You could use Podio. You could use Trello. You could use, a spreadsheet if you really needed to, if you don't have the opportunity to use new tools inside your workplace. But I do know that Asana lets you register just with your work email address, and there's nothing to install on the desktop because it's all cloud-based. So I'd strongly recommend you consider this for your team. Now, what Asana does is, and similar applications like this, it allows you to see exactly what's happening on a project across multiple teams. And, Microsoft have got their version of this with Microsoft Project. And we're in an office, I understand that for some teams, you might say, do I have to put all this stuff into my task management app? Or do we have to use the project app? Doesn't that overcomplicate things? Yes, if I was sitting in an office with 5 or 10 people and they were all sitting right next to me and we were seeing each other every day, yes, I could probably deal without having all of this stuff in an actual app or a system of some sort. But where this becomes really vital is where you are just not face-to-face. Now, not only does Asana let you manage tasks and projects and you can generate Gantt charts so you can know where your timelines are, it's got a really great framework for actually having conversation threads. And those conversation threads allow us to actually comment and check in on tasks as they progress. And so when you mention someone, it's just like Facebook. You do the @ sign and then you type in their name and it's going to ping them a notification and let them know, hey, someone's mentioned you here. But you'll see here on the left-hand side, there's an option called Inbox. And in that inbox, you actually see a thread of all of those conversations. Now, what this does is it gets you out of your email inbox. It allows you to see the flow of the work that's happening. And you can choose whether you want to follow or unfollow tasks, which are just kind of like, chats in the Facebook or another social media app. But what I really love about this is it means that everyone can be kept up to date without interrupting your work with instant messaging. Instant messaging is instant, right? And you're going to be interrupting people. Whereas a task management system is going to let you have conversations that are not necessarily urgent. So if someone asks me to do something on a meeting, I'll say, hey, Asana it to me. And they'll pop it in Asana. And then that automatically lets me know that I've got tasks to work on. So I would recommend a system like this, because what it does is it allows you to coordinate what tasks you need to do, what tasks your team needs to do. And then it removes the factor of, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Checking in on colleagues or just, knowing what's happening. I'll get a little notification on any tasks that I'm following when they've been completed. And what that does is it cuts down on the meetings. It cuts down, it virtually eliminates any email threads to check in internally if things are actually happening. And it also keeps all of your coordination in one simple place, so that when you have that huddle or a retrospective meeting or a team strategy meeting, someone can share their screen, open up the Asana project, and boom, you've got everything available right there for you. Now, as an example, I'm going to jump straight into my Asana here. This is my content creation board. And you can see here, I've got little squares that I can drag and drop back and forward. And what this allows me to do is, create our content. You can see some of these are assigned to different people. They've got due dates. Some of them have subtasks. And here, they've all been basically assigned and delegated out to different people. Now, remember, it doesn't necessarily matter exactly which app you use, but you've got to have something. So whether it's Microsoft Teams or whether it's Microsoft Project or whether it's a Google spreadsheet, you've got to have something. But a tool like Asana or Basecamp or Trello or Podio is going to be much better than trying to do something on a spreadsheet. Okay, so we have a question here. Someone has said, can this be used across different businesses if you were collaborating on a project? And yes, Asana can be used. So with Asana, I can invite anyone with an email address to collaborate on a project with me, which is really cool. The other thing I love about it, it's free for up to 15 people. Totally cool. So if you've got a team up to 15, you can jump in there and use it for free. But if I want to invite someone outside my company, I can. Just remember to sign up with your company email address first. So then the project is owned by the company as such. And of course, if you need to check with someone about, putting company data in a new app, then you want to make sure that you're checking with your IT policy with that as well. Okay, so we've covered off tasks. I'm really passionate about that. That one's super important. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again so you guys can see my slides, and we are going to move on to the next one. Great. So the next one is actually coordinating your customer communications. And most businesses should have a CRM or customer relationship system. And so that may be your customer database. One of the tools that we use is called Copper. And what Copper does is it sucks all of our emails and all of our documents and all the stuff out of the Google ecosystem, and it actually puts it into a CRM, a customer management system, so we can use that to coordinate our relationship management. Now, we will use this, for example, if we say this customer or this partner, I'd like to check in once every 90 days. Or we might use it and say, hey, we want to do some pipeline deal management. I need to use this for my actual sales process, and we can move deals along a pipeline, just in a similar way to what you saw with Asana. With a system like Copper or another customer management system, if you're in a sales role, if you're in a customer service role, if you're in a business account management or relationship role of some sort, what this allows you to do is make sure that all of your communication is automatically logged against the deal. So you can see all the communication if you've potentially got multiple people working on a deal. The other great thing that a piece of software like this does is it allows you to look at the value of a opportunity or a deal or a consultation or a partnership, and then attach priority and have follow-up tasks automatically created, all of those kind of things. So that's definitely worth a look at. And there's plenty of other CRM or customer relationship management systems that you should use. Now, again, why do we need to use software for this? Why can't we just do it on a piece of paper, or why can't we just do it on our own spreadsheet or something like that? things start to kind of fall off, the wheels start to fall off the wagon when people are actually working remotely and working at home. So we're big believers in having a dedicated app or a dedicated solution to help you making sure that you keep things well coordinated. Finally, I want to cover off communication. And this is, how do we actually make sure that we're communicating well to our customers and delivering really well? And then how do we make sure that we're able to work internally as well? How do we make sure that we're actually getting our work done? Now, for many businesses, they've switched to work from home. And in switching work from home, they've gone ahead and they've picked up their mobile and they've gone straight back to making calls on the mobile. And whoopsie, I'm going to try not to break things here. And the problem with that is exposing your mobile phone number to customers, particularly if you're in a service business, can lead to some boundaries being pushed a little bit. What tends to happen is, a customer might start texting you, or a customer might start calling you at odd hours. Or maybe a customer calls you instead of your team and you're off work for the day, right? And what that does is it starts to break down the strong barriers of work life and home life. And let me tell you, if you're working at home for the first time, one of the most important things for you to do is make sure that you have strong boundaries between that work life and that home life. And so exposing your mobile number to customers is not a great idea. Ideally, you need a phone system that's actually going to work with you by allowing someone to call a business landline. And yes, a modern cloud phone system will have an app that will run on your phone. So you can still get your calls no matter where you are, or you can answer your calls on your computer using your headset or a microphone or your webcam. But ideally, you don't want customers calling through to your mobile. So our strong recommendation is a cloud-based phone system. And so an app that we recommend is called Dialpad. We happen to be a reseller for that app. As in, Asana and G Suite, obviously, which we've shared earlier. But you could use, there's a multitude of different applications like that that will make the work more efficient. But the most important thing is you having good boundaries around the communication that you're sharing with your customers. Now, I mentioned having your phone not being used to share with your customers. I would actually recommend you leave it on silent and you put it in a drawer during the day. It's very easy to have things buzzing and beeping, and we're going to talk more about that soon, and distracting your work. And that often will cause you to get into that kind of feeling of that scattiness, or I call it kind of like ADD brain, right? Gen Y brain. And it's where you're trying to do something, but you've got about 4 or 5 things on your mind, and you kind of end up half doing, or a 25% effort doing all of the things that you're trying to get done. And so getting that phone well away from your workspace is a good idea. I know it's super tempting, and I know, Facebook's pinging and someone like your Instagram post, but as much as possible, if you can switch it to do not disturb and then put it away from you in a space where it's not going to disturb you, make sure you have other tools for your communication, and then you're going to have a much better work day. So finally, the next one is, how do we get our email communication even more efficient with our customers? And this is one I'm super passionate about. Now, we're in the IT industry and we use what's called a ticketing system, which means that you send an email in and you get a ticket number, although we don't share the ticket numbers with customers. No one likes to feel like they're a number. But there's basically a ticket number in the back end. But what a more sophisticated ticketing system does for the IT industry is lets us share and collaborate on an inbox. And what I really love about that is that allows us to deliver more effectively to our customers, because if an email from a customer comes in, there might be 2 or 3 people within our business that needs to work on that email. And so learning from the IT industry, that idea of a ticketing system, there are now many applications that have been created to allow you to, and I'm missing a slide here, but that's okay. We're going to use our imagination, that allow you to actually see and collaborate on shared mailboxes. Now, a shared or a collaborative mailbox can be set up in Office 365, it can be set up in G Suite, or you can use additional third-party software to make that even more powerful. And what that allows you to do is to send one or expose one email address to your customers. Now, ours happens to be help@itgenius.com. That's our help desk address, and any one of our customers can email help@itgenius.com, and that's going to go to someone and they're going to pick it up. It means no lost email. It means we can track how many requests a week are we receiving. It means we can track how quickly are we responding to our customers. And it means that if we have a few different people who need to work on, in our case, a ticket, but it might be a customer request, you can have an internal dialogue happening on that request without the customer seeing that before someone then responds to the customer. So what might a typical request look like? Well, we might have an email come in and a customer says, hey, I need help paying my bill. and we have someone reply to them and say, hey, thanks very much for getting in touch. What kind of issues are you having? And they might reply and say, hey, well, I've tried to put in my credit card, but I'm getting an error, or I can't reset my password, or I need some help with that. Now, the person who has that request might ping it over to someone else. They might have to, I don't know, run a report or fix something in the back end of a system, but they can make internal notes on that request before they then reply to the customer. Or you might have for example, a project that is ongoing, and you want to have one place for communication back and forward with a customer, but 2 or 3 people working on that project. And rather than having a big kind of like CC email chain, which ends up with 20 or 30 or 40 people on it, using a collaborative inbox not only makes it nice and tidy and simple for you, it's also pretty good for your brand as well. It makes it really easy for customers to know where to email. Now, if you're not the person to set this up, that's totally okay. Have a chat to your IT team or whoever helps you out with this kind of thing, and ask about a collaborative shared mailbox if you think that's a good idea for you to boost up your ability to deliver great support.
I actually think that's also a really good idea for anyone who's in a job share as well, because I know, if we think about it at the moment, a lot of people have had their hours cut. They are in a job share facility, but even now from a HR perspective, more and more people are sharing jobs. They are being split, they are being partnered. There's even software that can kind of match 2 people to one job. So I think something like that could also work really well in that environment where, you can't always grab someone on the phone. It is their day off. You need to, find out the information for, or the answer to a particular question, and you don't want to, reinvent the wheel or ask the same questions twice. So I actually think that's something that I will be looking into myself.
That's awesome. It's super useful. And sometimes an internal note on a request might just be waiting for Bob to come back to work tomorrow, or I'm going to assign this to Bob. And, you can assign a ticket or a request to different colleagues. And so if you've got a team who are working on a number of colleagues, who are working on a number of requests, you can, assign things to different people, and that makes it pretty useful. Now, the final step before we get into our tips for new players is automate. We recommend an application called Zapier. But in the cloud world, we have so many different apps. We've got Dropboxes, we've got Slack, we've got Google Docs, and all of these different applications have their own ways of working. Now, how do you get data to talk to all of them? I've talked about a CRM system. I've talked about a collaborative inbox system. I've talked about a cloud-based phone system. But, if someone is in your CRM system and you close a deal, how do you have a new project started in your task management system? If someone has emailed in a request and you want to automatically add them to your marketing email list, then how do you make sure that happens? Well, this little app here called Zapier, I'll show you the logo again. That's the one down the bottom there. That little app there helps connect cloud tools to each other and helps them talk to each other. So as I suggested as an example, if you have someone email that help desk and you want to have them automatically added to your marketing list, if you have someone fill out a form on your website and you automatically want to create a task in your task management system to, call them up and check out their inquiry. If you want to take your call volumes from your cloud-based phone system and automatically plop them into a spreadsheet, so someone who's a customer service manager can monitor how many calls you're getting coming to the business. All of these things, all these magic things happen with Zapier. And the best thing about this is it can be used by most humans. And so there's a free plan, which lets you do a couple of zaps to kind of try it out for free, which is pretty good. I would say you do have to be a bit more on the techie side of things to make things kind of talk to each other here. But what this app does is it lets all of your cloud applications talk to each other, particularly if you're in a small business and you've got a hodgepodge of different apps to get the everything working together. Then Zapier is a great choice. Now, some of my favorite ones that we use internally are when someone makes a sale, we post that into our Google chat. And so when a deal's closed, it gets posted into the Google chat, and then everyone gets to celebrate and thank the person that did well. When we have a customer who gives us a thumbs up on a customer support ticket, and we get like literally hundreds and hundreds of those a week, sometimes hundreds a day, then that also goes into the chat. I showed you a few of those, and we can all congratulate the team. So where you can imagine in a physical office, you might have a bell that you ring when you close a deal, or you might shout, jump up and down and go, woohoo, yay, well done. You've got to find ways of having these moments when you've got a remote team as well. And this is just one of those apps that kind of brings things together and makes it all nice and easy. Oh, there's my missing slide. We found it. That's what Hiver looks like, which is the little tool that lets us assign emails or add internal notes there. I did my best to describe that to you guys with our imagination. Okay. So we have a question here from a risk perspective. What steps can I take to manage risk across all platforms? Is there a software that you can suggest? Nicole, I would say that's a great question. Sorry, did you want to jump in?
My question around this was mainly down to, at the moment, we're looking at lots of different platforms, lots of different programs for, I guess, to have different functions. From a business perspective, I guess I'd be quite worried that there are a lot of risks, and the more platforms you have, the harder it is to really manage that risk. Do you have any suggestions on how to manage that, or a particular software that you would suggest?
Excellent question. Identity management is the kind of name for this, and I don't want to go too far into technology land because people can glaze over a little bit. But the simplest way is if you have a Microsoft-based identity management or a Google-based identity management, is to integrate these tools with your business and corporate logins. And so that can be done quite easily by your technology team. Even if they say it's hard, it's not that hard. They will allow you to basically restrict the logins of these applications and tools to only corporate email addresses. So that's the easiest way to do it. If you happen to be using the G Suite Google ecosystem, then most of these tools will just use your Google address to log in. And so if someone has an account with all of these different apps, you can be sure that it's locked down to their Google account, and the Google account can have two-factor authentication switched on. That's free and part of Google G Suite. And that allows you to make sure that everybody's accounts are protected. Now, it's really important if you've got people who are working at home and they're using their own computers to make sure that you have a password on your computer. And one of my number one tips is to actually set up a separate work profile on your computer. Actually sign right out of your personal profile, create a work profile on your computer. And that way you can set up all your work stuff somewhere safe where your kids are not going to jump onto it, your partner's not going to borrow the computer and mess with any of the work stuff. And if you're in the situation where you have an employer who's concerned about, as we all should be, the data privacy and data protection of corporate data, you want to make sure that you're doing all that you can to protect that. So let's jump into our tips for newbies. We're getting bombarded with notifications all day long now. And we've got all these different devices and it's all fun and exciting. And we get our little dopamine hits every time we get the notifications. But the same thing happens with instant messages. The same thing happens with emails. And so I want to challenge you to switch all your notifications off. Switch them off. Open your phone, go to settings, click on notifications, switch them off. Open your computer, go to your email client, go to notifications, switch them off. If you're really game, switch off your instant messaging notifications as well. Trust me, you will be much more comfortable. Your anxiety will drop during the day. And you may be worried about like going into your inbox. I get that, but schedule to go into your inbox a couple of times a day. But if you can switch off those notifications so they're not pinging you all the time, you're going to have a much more productive day. Now, I'm going to take you into some more practical stuff, but first I want to give you an illustration of why that's so important. Now, imagine that your attention span, your ability to think about multiple things and your ability to concentrate on multiple tasks is like a big jar of jelly beans, right? And every time you've got an open loop or something that's taking a bit of your attention, one of the jelly beans is out of the jar. So you're driving down the road. I mean, we're not doing much driving right now, but imagine you're driving down the road and you've got your phone and your phone holder and an email pops up from your notifications, right? And it's from that client, that client, and every now and again you get an email in like all capitals or this is urgent, but they're all urgent. It's from that client, right? And you go, oh, I've really got to deal with that. But you're still driving. All of a sudden there's a jelly bean out of your jar. And until you pull over and stop, or until you shouldn't text and drive, but until you actually get home and deal with that email or wherever you're going to, that jelly bean is going to continue to be out of your jar. Now, this happens all day long with those notifications because all you need to do is read a subject line and then you've got an open loop because it's in the back of your mind. So if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and you keep all your jelly beans in your jar. And what that means is you'll be able to do more productive work without that actually, that distraction mode of, just constant anxiety and constant, I don't feel like I'm getting onto absolutely everything. So if that's a challenge for you, switch off your notifications. I hope you do it because it can change your life. Let's jump into some of the other good stuff that I've got here. So Another thing that tends to happen is when we're working, we can be checking social media or checking news sites. And that's fine when you're in your lunch hour. But what can happen is we can go into like bored procrastination mode sometimes. And you may have found yourself, on a slow day, going back and checking, going back and checking, going back and checking. I know that that has happened to me many a time. I've got a great recommendation that I want to make for a Chrome extension for you. And it is called, what's it called? It's called BlockSite. So I'm going to search the Chrome web store here. You can just Google that and find that. Whoops, let's spell that correctly and then it might actually show up. So this is BlockSite. It's a website blocker for Chrome. And what I do is this is like a self-blocking mechanism where I can go in here and I can switch it on. And then if I go to open up Facebook because I'm procrastinating on something, it's going to pop up and it's going to tell me I'm not allowed to go there. So that's a great way of actually stopping yourself from going to those kind of sites. But what about when you're on your lunch hour and you want to have some mess around time, right? Well, I've got one even better because we're eventually going to go to Facebook, right? Well, there's another great one, which is called Kill Newsfeed. Let me open that one. And if you install Kill Newsfeed, just going to wait for it to load and do its thing. Here we go. This is the logo. If you're looking for it, install this one. What that does, and I'm going to have to turn off BlockSite here, is this will actually kill your newsfeed. So when you open Facebook, look at that. There's no news feed. So I can respond to notifications. I can see birthday invites. I can see group activity, all that kind of stuff. I can use it as much as I want. I can even post stuff, but I don't have a news feed to endlessly scroll through. So if you wanted even a boss move, a pro level, delete the app from your phone. And then I've been newsfeed free for 5 years. This is a great thing to do. Now, you might not want to do this. You might enjoy the newsfeed and that's fine. There's no shame if you do, but leave the newsfeed for your personal profile. Keep it off your work profile so you can keep nice and productive. Okay, so we've gone through user blocker. We've gone through kill the newsfeed. Couple of other personal tips for you making sure that you are working productively and that you're working healthily with your team. Now, we've covered a lot of the technology side of things on how you can be productive and how you can work really well with your team. But it's really important that you also still feel connected with your team as well on a human level. And one of the things that we do is called co-working days. And a co-working day or a co-working session is where you open up a Google Meet or a Zoom call and you just leave it open all day long. So it might just be with a colleague on your team. I heard today that someone even does it with their whole company and just leaves it open for the whole day. That's a pretty cool concept. But basically co-working means that you do 3 or 4 hours work alongside someone, just like you would when you're in the office. It allows you to chit chat. You can mute your microphone if you need to make a phone call, but at least you can basically see that person as you're working away and you get that really beautiful human connection with them. And so that's one of the things that I recommend there. And the second one that I would recommend is do a virtual Friday night drinks or a virtual, we do ours on Thursday evening, once a fortnight, and we have like an hour or an hour and a half. We call it TGIT or Thank God It's Thursday. And in that meeting, anything goes. There's no work chat allowed. Everyone jumps on Google Meet. We switch to gallery view, which is similar to what Zoom has. And we just play games. We chat. We've had a talent quest before. We celebrate wins. We celebrate if it's somebody's birthday or if they just got married or just had a kid or whatever. And that's our social time. And so in this time where we are away from our work colleagues, it's really important to make sure you've still got that social fabric and the social framework of your team. So if you haven't already, organize some tools. And I've got one final recommendation for you. There is a game called Drawful, which is an excellent game. If you Google Drawful, it's actually free right now online. You can go and grab it from the Steam web store. This is a great game for up to 8 players. You just play it on your mobile. It's a drawing game. And it's a lot of fun to play with your team. So if you're looking for something to do, cool activity for those social events, then jump onto that game. And if you jump onto our YouTube channel or you head along to our Facebook page, we've got a heap more recommendations on games that you can play. But that's it for me for now. If you need any help at all, or if you would like to connect with our team, you can head along to our website. You can go to itgenius.tv is honestly the best place to go because that'll let you subscribe to our channel and check out all the content that we post online regularly. So we post heaps of stuff on engaging your remote teams. What are the biggest challenges of working from home? How you can get your team, working with all of these technology tools that you'll need to make sure that your team are well supported. But if you're interested in more resources on getting your team productive at home, head along to itgenius.com/remote. We have our team on hand for a free consultation if that's of interest to you. But otherwise, if you just have a question, go ahead and drop us a question on our live chat and our team will be very happy to answer. And I'll personally be happy to answer any questions that you have about the presentation or anything that we've covered. Jump onto the links there, drop us a message, and we'll be sure to help you out. And I think we have some Q&A now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Pete. I think you've pretty much changed my life. A heap of hints and tips. I do get distracted. I think Blocker is great. I think Kill the News Feed, I think it might have been called, will definitely help me out because I do like to have a little browse. So I kind of feel like out of sight, out of mind will definitely help me. But thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise. And just one last question that I've got for you. How do you see the workplace and the working community transforming beyond today?
I'm so glad that this is opening the eyes of employers that remote work can be productive and that teams can work from home. What I see and what I'm hoping to see is more flexibility added. I know that not everyone wants to work from home all day long. I usually end up working from co-working spaces or cafes or the beach or around. I don't work at home all day long, even though we've been in this dynamic in our company for a very long time. But what I know when companies start working from home or when companies allow staff to work more flexibly, it means that if you need to do the kids run in the afternoon, then get a bit of work done for a couple of hours at home. It means that if you're not feeling great and you're well enough to respond in Asana, but you just don't feel like getting out of bed, or you just need to have a chill day to recover your energy, or even just cutting down on the commute time, like they are all good things for humanity. I think happier workers, happier teams, happier people mean, better and more productive businesses on the commercial side of things, but it's just better for all of us, really. So I'm really glad that this is, with all of the challenges that have come. I know this has been forced upon many, and it comes with many challenges. It's probably not the way I would have liked to have seen it done, but we're in this situation now, and there are positives coming out of it.
Definitely. And I couldn't agree more, Pete. I think, you've pretty much mirrored, what I've been saying in the previous deep dives. I definitely think it's going to be a mixture of both. I'm glad that, that the change is happening. I think it will create a bit more of an equal playing field, particularly for women as well, if there is that little bit more flexibility with sharing, children's pickups and what flexibility is generally seen as. So look, I can't wait to see the ripples and the changes happen across the industry. But look, Pete, I know that you've got to jump off. So thank you so much for your time, and on behalf of the Intact Beyond team, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.